Members of NOTU executive present here, chaired by our Chairman General NOTU, members of press, and general public listening to us. This afternoon, we are closing an important workshop whereby we had the 38 chairpersons of all affiliated unions in NOTU. And majorly we have been discussing on the key issues pertaining labor in the country. We have tackled the issue of informal economy and how informality is affecting the employment in the country, and we have discussed elaborately on the way forward. But most importantly, what has come out clearly that there is a big concern about salary disparities in the country. As a national center, we have taken trouble to move across the country and find out the effects of salary disparities. One, we have found out that the morale of the workers has gone down, especially for the arts-related workers. This has affected service delivery across the country. We have also found out that the rate of absenteeism has gone high because of loss of morale. We want, in the strongest term, to recommend and also tell the government that this decision was a wrong one, and we need to correct this. Otherwise, it is going to affect service delivery, and also it is going to affect the economic development and economic growth. So we have made a resolution as NOTU that this is a matter we need to push forward, that is revived in the country. Otherwise, we are destined for harsh results in the country. Thank you.
Members of the media, I want to thank you very much that you have found it appropriate to be here today to get our message in regard to the state of workers in the country. Once again, my name is Wanzus Robert. I am the General Secretary of Infrastructure Workers Union, but I'm also chairing a committee in NOTU, which is in charge of organizing and education. One of the major issues that we are looking at as trade unions in Uganda is the fact that we have got investors in Uganda. These investors came to Uganda with a view of helping the country to grow economically and by creating employment for our people. But the quality of jobs that have been created have left many of our workers so grossly injured, and with the earnings that are very, very, very minimal. And the conditions in these workplaces are really deplorable. Conditions in workplaces, in factories, the various factories, those conditions are deplorable. Trade unions in the country have demanded that workers enjoy their rights in terms of belonging to trade unions so that they can collectively bargain. But these wonderful investors do not want workers to belong to trade unions because they believe that when workers belong to trade unions, they will demand for their rights. Yet for them as investors, sometimes, in many cases, they don't respect these rights. When they don't respect these rights, they derive a benefit from abuse of those rights. And one of the things we are demanding as trade unions is that the various investors, wherever they are, should be able to respect the workers' rights to belong to a trade union. Employers should not resist trade unions. We have been very patient people, talking to them, persuading them to be able to acknowledge that it's important that they peacefully enter into amicable settlements with unions to respect workers' rights. But this is not going to be the case forever. We seem to see that many of them are beginning to use force, they use a lot of misinformation, they use persecution, conditions being put in place, discouraging workers from joining trade unions, using duress. If you join a trade union, they will be able to sack you. This kind of behavior is completely unacceptable. Workers are joining trade unions in line with the law. Why an employer should refuse respect a trade union is a clear breach of the law. And this is something trade unions will not tolerate forever. Because if workers don't join trade unions, then that means that you are making unions irrelevant. So I want to appeal to employers wherever they are to respect the rights of the workers. This question of them thinking they are going to run from some God to some godfather to help them, that will not survive for long. And the godfathers who keep protecting employers who abuse workers' rights should stop. Whatever it is that trade unions are demanding is a provision of the law, and this must be respected. So I want to appeal to employers who are in the habit of disrespecting the rights of the workers, of abusing workers' rights, to stop and allow trade unions to function in the various workplaces. Unless if they do not, then we shall be compelled to apply alternative means, which might again become so disruptive. These are rights that are given to us, and everybody must respect them. The other point I wanted to talk about briefly is quite related in regard to the way the industrial court is operating. The industrial court, the only court that is handling workers' cases in Uganda is the industrial court. When you take a labor matter to court, whether high court or anywhere, they will always refer it to industrial court. But industrial court can handle only 500 cases in a year. Now, if you are having about 20 million workers in Uganda, and out of these 20 million workers, you are having maybe 10% of those workers who are aggrieved, that will translate to about 2 million cases. Now, if we have a court handling only 500 cases, when will the industrial court ever dispense justice to the rest of the workers who are aggrieved? It is therefore very important that government considers appointment of new judges as provided by the Labor Disputes Arbitration and Settlement Act to allow workers gain justice. If they are not able to get justice through grievance handling mechanisms established in workplaces, if they are not able to get justice through the labor offices, they should get justice in court. But the person files a case in court and finishes close to 10 years, the case is not handled. They get discouraged and have the matters just disbanded. We appeal to government to be able to appoint additional judges so that we can have an industrial court circuit in northern Uganda, industrial court circuit in western Uganda, industrial court circuit in eastern Uganda, and maybe the one which is here can handle central Uganda. Thank you very much.
As the most representative federation of employees organizations in Uganda, we raise once again on this matter that has been on the table for a very long period of time. The last time we had a law on minimum wage was 1984. And since 1984 to date, employees in Uganda are paid at the will of those that employ them. And it's not a good practice. We want to appreciate the argument by government to attract investors to come in big numbers so that we can begin to ask for minimum wage. On the other hand, it is important that for any serious investor or employer, you don't have to run away or fear to adequately pay the person who is working for you for good productivity. Actually, in essence, the amount or the GDP that we get today is even lower than it would be if minimum wage was announced, because this absence of minimum wage has kept so many employees in this country underpaid. So many of these employees do not even contribute to NSSF, which money would be otherwise used to develop the country. These people who have no minimum wage do not contribute or even qualify to contribute to pay as you earn, which would also add a great deal to the GDP of Uganda. So it is necessary and important for government to reconsider that after 39 years, the time should be now to also think about its nationals. For 39 years, if we have concentrated on bringing investors, let those who have come here begin to pay a minimum wage at least, because we are in an environment where the standard of living is high, the cost of living keeps increasing every year, the inflation is increasing every time, and the Ugandan employee is earning 5,000 shillings per day. But he has rent to pay, he has 4 children who go to school, he has to feed this family with an income of 5,000 shillings per day. And we are only saying that we still need investors. But the investors should not be meant to destroy Ugandans. The working conditions are deplorable in many of these. The inspection is quite low. Government is even not aware what exactly happens with the workers in these industrial parks. When recently we did some surveys with the minister responsible for labor, the situation that we found in those industrial parks is quite deplorable. She could even shed tears with the situation that she saw. So it is important and necessary that one, government steps up the issue of labor inspection. 2, government must consider establishing a minimum wage so that more Ugandans can join the money economy. Many of the Ugandan workers are not in the money economy, and we announced ourselves that as a country we want to get into the status of middle income. How shall we have middle income? How shall we realize it when workers are paid 5,000 shillings and the workers are 20 million people? To ensure that we have a minimum wage act in Uganda that provides for the minimum pay a Ugandan worker should earn. And we also agreed that it can be sectoral, not necessarily that one figure for all economic sectors. We can determine minimum wage sector by sector, because the different sectors have different capacities to earn. So that is what we submit as National Organization of Trade Unions.
I also want to add my voice to our fellow leaders in the trade union and advocate for decent work in this country. This country is facing an issue of having workplaces that are really appalling, that conditions are very, very bad. Our workers are getting accidents. They are not compensated. They are getting injuries. And once they are injured, they are dismissed from their workplaces. They are getting all kinds of diseases in their workplace. But government has not gone ahead to have these workplaces inspected. And where the inspections are done, no corrective measures are done or followed up. So we want to urge government really to make sure the Ministry of Labor is empowered, to make sure that they recruit inspectors, and to make sure that these inspectors are also facilitated with the necessary logistics to make them go and inspect these industries and factories. We have seen there is a lot of violence and harassment, especially in the workplaces. Harassment from the employers, harassment that is from the fellow workers, And we know recently Uganda ratified the Convention on Violence and Harassment, but there are no enabling policies. So we want to urge government to put into place policies and also laws that will govern our workplaces so that they are free from harassment and violence. Especially cases of sexual harassment are on the rise. We have domestic violence, which is also on the rise, that flows into our workplaces also and affect the productivity of the workers. Once the workers are working without decent work, we find that their productivity goes down, and so does the economy, which economy depends on the workforce. You cannot have only advocate for industries, because these industries and other workplaces, the pillars are the workers. So it's high time we look at the welfare of the workers so that this country can move to another level and our economic development can be realized as to the dreams. So we appeal to government, put a special focus on the workforce as we move forward in this year. Thank you.
I'm Ruth Namwiga from Uganda Markets and Allied Employees Union, and I'm the national chairperson of this union. Markets Union is one of the informal workers' economy union where we find a lot of discrimination. Yes, the government has started thinking about us, but they have not included us in the policy making area where we don't have policies as informal workers. So we urge the government to include us as they make different things for the informal workers, but they are not included. We want this all workers to be included in the policy making. So we want also to be given how we can pay taxes so that people in the markets can stay peacefully and have decent working places like other people, because we are all workers and we contribute more than the formal, we contribute more to the GP of the country, Uganda, than others. So let the government think more about the informal workers so that we can work together. Thank you.
We felt it important to speak to the public, speak to the workers, and speak to the government and also the parliament of this country about issues that affect us. I want to address myself to the issue of rationalization of government agencies. The process has been going on for quite a while now. As we speak now, I think they are coming to the conclusion, but it has had adverse effect on workers in those institutions. In many ways, one, psychological, someone has been earning big salaries, and after the rationalization, they are transferred back to the mother ministry and the salary drops. That person will never be stable again. But along with that, the laws had to be reviewed in the process of rationalization. That review has affected us, the workers' leaders and the workers' organization, in that the previous laws had representation of workers in them. But during the amendments, the workers' slots have been dropped. Particularly, I'm going to mention MTAC, which is Management Training and Advisory Center. The act was amended and the workers were dropped. The other one is Uganda Free Zones Authority. The act was amended and the workers were dropped. Currently, the TVET Act, which the president is yet to sign, the workers have been dropped. And we are beginning to feel like the workers' space is being squeezed. The representation of workers in this country is getting threatened. We think Parliament and government should take this very seriously and ensure that the workers' slots are protected. Because if this continues, it's going to force workers to take other actions which are not good, and we don't think that should happen. For now, that is what I wanted to mention during this press conference, and thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much for your audience, and God bless you. God bless Uganda.